let's talk about Bitcoin. Why not? You guys all want me to talk about Bitcoin. I'm always getting emails. You should talk about Bitcoin on the podcast. I got a comment the other day about it. Thanks so much for your podcast. I really have been enjoying it over the past few months. I'm a first-year med student. Congratulations on getting into med school, and minored in economics in college, so I've been interested in many of the macro factors going on right now. And you'll notice that people interested in cryptocurrency are always talking about macro factors, particularly, concerns about future inflation or concerns about confiscation by governments tend to be what they worry about, and that's what pushes them to put a significant chunk of money into cryptocurrencies in hopes that they could hide this from a confiscation event or that it would somehow be exempt from an hyperinflation event. He goes on to say, I was wondering if you would consider having Preston Pish on your podcast to chat about the global macro environment, government debt, inflation, and Bitcoin as a store of value, like I mentioned. I realize cryptocurrency can be wildfire and terribly risky. Isn't that the truth? However, given the current environment, I almost believe it is irresponsible not to have any education about the asset class given its properties. I'm a big fan of education. I really think you ought to learn about all kinds of stuff. And cryptocurrency isn't a bad thing to learn about. The main benefits of it, of course, are that there's a fixed supply, right? Supposedly, you can't just go make your own new Bitcoin now. It's not necessarily the case. You can go spend a whole bunch of money and energy and apparently mine new Bitcoin. So it's not totally fixed, but eventually it'll be fixed. It's decentralized, so the U.S. government can't control it, although they seem to be becoming ever more effective at taxing it and exerting some control over it. And it's useful for cross-border payments. Well, I suppose some of us make cross-border payments from time to time. I don't make very many, but if that's a big need you have, that might be useful, especially if you need to get around that pesky rule about only carrying $10,000 in cash in your suitcase. He goes on to say, institutions and investors are starting to realize this as fund managers like Paul Tudor Jones and publicly traded companies like MicroStrategy add Bitcoin to their balance sheets. I don't know what this argument is. People use this all the time. I should invest in Bitcoin because some hedge fund does, or because some bank does, or because some wealthy individual does. Their goals are not the same as mine. I wouldn't invest in Bitcoin just because of that sort of a thing, especially since I still can't use it to buy anything I want to buy. Right? My gas station isn't taking it. My grocery store isn't taking it. This is not a useful currency. It certainly is not a stable currency, right? Its volatility dramatically exceeds that of the stock market. And I'm not putting grocery money in stocks until I spend it. So I think we can see there that it's, still an instrument of speculation, not a useful currency at this point. All right, he goes on to say, I think if this is done safely and if investors are not over-leveraged, I think this could protect value if inflation rises. Could and can and may are such useful words, aren't they? Anytime you use these words, you can follow it with pretty much anything you want, right? Because it puts this hedge on what you just said. Yes, it could potentially protect you in the event of hyperinflation. It might not too, and there might not be hyperinflation, but it could protect you. All right, he goes on to say, more broadly, blockchain in general, I believe, will change the world. Entirely possible. Very useful technology. A quick search on cryptocurrencies such as Algorand or Cardano has shown how the scientific peer review process has seeped into this space and use cases are unlimited. I agree. There's lots of uses for blockchain, just like there's lots of uses for the internet. But that doesn't mean that every company with .com at the end of its name in the late 1990s is going to be a great investment for your portfolio. Pets.com, for instance, was not a great investment. Likewise, there are going to be a number of these cryptocurrencies available out there and these coins available out there that are not going to be great investments. In fact, there's no guarantee that any of them, at least those existing today, are going to be great investments. Will there eventually be some coalescence in this space? Yes. Will cryptocurrencies continue to be used and probably become more useful as time goes on? Yes. Will I still be able to exchange dollars at some future point for cryptocurrency? Absolutely yes. So no reason you have to buy it now just because it's probably going to be used more frequently in the future. We're still in the early stages, he goes on to say, but the projects that do survive, I believe, will change the world. Okay, entirely possible. Although these assets are highly volatile, absolutely true, and full of many scams, also absolutely true. I encourage people to have an open mind about it because there's some amazing innovation going on, masked by the hype and pain of volatile prices. I agree. There's amazing innovation going on. I agree. It doesn't hurt to have an open mind, but you don't want your mind so open that your brains fall out of it, right? Use your head, people. Okay. There's a lot of hype. There are very volatile prices. And at the end of the day, what you're investing in is at best a currency. So if you're not buying yen, you're not buying euros, you got to ask yourself, why am I buying cryptocurrencies? Okay, it's the same thing. It's an instrument of speculation. You're buying it in hopes that down the road, someone else will pay you more for it. He finishes, I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this. I think you just heard him. I also think having some education about this could benefit listeners. I agree. There are way too many people who are running out there and putting way too much of their portfolio into Bitcoin, mostly out of fear of missing out and in hopes of getting rich quick. So make safe and educated decisions. As I've said over the years, there's no Bitcoin in my portfolio. But if you're a true believer in Bitcoin or some other cryptocurrency, and you think it's a better hedge against future economic catastrophes and other commonly used assets like gold or commodities or farmland, and you're convinced that of the hundreds of cryptocurrencies out there that Bitcoin will be one of the winners, then go buy some. It really doesn't bother me what you spend your money on. But limit its percentage in your portfolio to a play money amount, something like less than 5%. And don't assume that just because blockchain technology is useful, that Bitcoin must grow to the sky. I think there's the Winklevoss twins, the people that were apparently involved in Facebook early on, who predicted recently that Bitcoin was going to $500,000. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I honestly have no idea. But there are many future potential scenarios where the future investment return on Bitcoin will be terrible. And don't discount the possibility of that. You are making a risky bet. Maybe it'll pay off, maybe it won't. Don't bet the farm on it. If you want your questions answered by the White Coat Investor, record your question at whitecoatinvestor.com/YQA or click the link in the description.